As in,
because it's so sensitive and it's so ingrained everywhere. People, if they see you say something unsavory, I have ways of phrasing it where I can put the Islamic viewpoint forward, and you'll be pressed, but you can't do anything. Do you get what I'm saying? But it's more like, how to say, let's say if you guys like didn't use that language and it's like, oh, you're sharing platform, do you get what I'm saying? And they said this, how do you respond to this? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not here to explain someone else's view. And to be honest, more time I'll still agree with you guys, but I can't phrase it in that way. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's the difficulty of this whole thing.
Yeah,
that's
even within us, there's differences. In
the level
of what how we'd phrase stuff.
Yeah.
To me, so like I don't have any. Or obviously, Islamically, we know what the Islamic viewpoint on that type of stuff is. Whatever.
We're recording, by the way.
Yeah, we're recording, by the way.
So
But anything can get chopped out if need be. You'll see the final copy anyway before it goes out. Especially you. I need to make sure you see the final copy. We know the Islamic viewpoint, and that goes without saying. I guess the issue is, if the same way it's a very much an issue hair over hair when we try to force our viewpoint on people. I think it's fair in this so-called world of free speech and I mean just like freeness that if somebody doesn't want a viewpoint forced upon them, they shouldn't have to have it. So that has to be give and take. And I think that it's important in that there's a group of people that always stand up for the fact that everybody should have the same energy for everybody. So therefore, the same way I'm very much used to, and I've accepted that I can't go around forcing my opinions on the rest of the world. I should be allowed to say, cool, that's your opinion. Yeah. But you cannot force me to apply this in every sense of the word. And it doesn't mean that I'm some sort of bigot or some sort of, you know.
And when you look at the foundations the society is like based on, which is it's based on different things, but let's say liberalism, that is one of the core tenets of liberalism, that you should be able to speak and everyone has their viewpoints, but do you know what I'm saying? But what we have gotten to is a point where you can't do that. Do you get what I'm saying? So if you do express
it's selective.
it's selective.
It's selective, yeah, that's what I was about to say, yeah.
So it is very difficult for, I feel like, Muslim activists out there who are trying to stay close to Deen and like they're trying to implement Islamic principles into their work and also working on issues that need to be worked on. It's very, very difficult. And a lot of the brothers and sisters I know who have done it, it's kind of like, how to say, once you go deep into that side of work, it's very hard to come back into the community and just interact with everybody else normally. Because it's like...
You mean our own community, like your own community?
Yeah, it's like, I will actually compare it to going to war. Like spiritually and mentally, it's like going to war, and intellectually, because you're interacting with ideas that are constantly attacking your faith or constantly putting things up in question. So once you go out there, once you come back into the community, it's not to say, of course, you don't leave Islam, right? But you have been exposed to a lot more stuff that has opened your mindset. And opening your mindset doesn't mean now, I'm leaving the Sharia side or I don't care about Islam anymore, but you just see the world differently in the way the rest of your Muslim brothers and sisters can't. And once your mindset has changed like that, bro, it's very isolating. That's something I see once Muslim activists have gone into those spheres, once they take steps back. I see most people they're isolated after. And they can only really relate to other people who have, and as I said, I kind of compare it to like war veterans, when you see them, they understand the kind of like, and of course, I'm not saying like, I've had it as bad as those guys, but I'll be honest, I've seen some stuff mentally, intellectually as well, and Islamically, spiritually, that will really challenge you, bro. You will really be on the ropes in terms of some of the stuff you're coming across. So.
Okay. Before
a couple of things,
go on.
a couple of things I wanna get into there. But before we get in, let's introduce. Let's intro. Assalamu guys. Jollof of Jummah is back. This is episode 47.
Boy.
MashaAllah.
I think it's 47.
47.
The numbers sound weird. It's 47, but alhamdulillah, Dad just turned 1. So yeah, this we've been
from time ago.
So from the 4th of September, last week. This is 1 year we've been doing this. Alhamdulillah, it's mad. Obviously, time flies. But yeah, alhamdulillah, we hope that we can continue bringing you guys content for as long as we can, inshallah, and bigger and better content, inshallah. Yeah. Obviously, Abdullah left us last time.
I think a lot of people might not have seen that because of the. It was at the end of the episode.
Yeah. So at the end of the episode, Abdullah left the podcast because he's moving on to our adventures. So if you watch the end of the episode, we saw that we wished him well and we pray that Allah continues to put barakah in all of his endeavors and brings him success and protects him and his family.
Ameen.
But going forward, it will be me and Abdul Malik for now. Well, let me not say for now, but going forward, it will be me and Abdul Malik, and we will continue to. We're going to continue to bring you guys as much quality content as possible. So yeah.
Can I just say as well? Obviously, I wasn't here for the last episode, but yeah, just personally, big thanks to Abdullah, man. Jazakallah here. I'm sure he's listening. For helping us kind of put this together.
Yeah, like I said, yeah.
Like we spoke about this for like years, well not years, but like literally a couple of years. Like we spoke about this type of thing
before we actually started,
and he
was the one that made the steps to actually.
Abdullah is a guy of action,
decisive. Yeah, so
mashallah. So, but yeah, man,
you'll see him again. Yeah. We'll have him on
inshallah.
Inshallah, yeah, man.
Yeah, man. But yeah, but obviously he's all good. Saw him yesterday. He's chilling. Alhamdulillah. Obviously, I guess we'll do it like going forward. Obviously, it's going to be the two of us, so we're going to try and use this as an opportunity to kind of diversify the content as much as we can. Kind of more guests, more kind of insightful speakers going into different kind of niches within the kind of Islamic world and within the community, to try and just make sure that we like deliver that sick content, and that's part of the whole plan of going fortnightly as well. It's going to allow us to be a lot more organized with that, so hopefully the quality inshallah should shoot up. So now is a better time than ever to obviously subscribe, to like, so more people see, to follow us on the various social media, which is going to be a lot more content heavy.
Yes,
I'm looking at Ibrahim, isn't it? Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair.
Alhamdulillah.
May Allah grant you tawfiq in that endeavor.
I mean,
let's all say Ameen.
Ameen.
So yeah, man.
Guys, watch out. We've got some good guests coming on.
Yeah,
we've already got some.
The calendars calendaring it. So alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, it's looking good going forward.
Yeah, we've obviously started with the best.
Our best foot forward.
This guy's buttering me up.
Wait, I've never heard that term before. I like that one, yeah, man. We've got. I don't even know what do you go by, fam. I don't know. Are we not allowed to say your name?
This guy,
inshallah, this episode comes out because boy, the lawyers be lawyering for it. Go on. Anyway, I'll let you introduce yourself actually.
So my name is Ayo. Whoops, can you see?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to edit that out, bro. I've got a bit of a cold, so if my voice goes up and down, forgive me. My name is Ayo. So I'm a final year medic now. I've been in uni 7 years. And alhamdulillah, I've got a beard to show for it now. My face was looking round and clean before, so alhamdulillah, we got something to show for it now. So I'm in my last year of medicine at UCL, University College London, and that's where I'm based. So I reverted to Islam now 4.5 years ago, something like that. So alhamdulillah, and I'm also, I would say, I've taken part in like different aspects of community work. So I've worked in my students' union, and I've also been part of FOSIS, which is the Federation of Student Islamic Societies, and was the vice president there for so working on student politics for Islamic societies and university campuses, but also Muslim students at large across the country. So I was heading that project. So yeah, I've done a few bits as well, and also obviously my it was interesting. My values, obviously, as a non-Muslim, becoming a Muslim, you had to kind of there was a change that I had to go through as well. I'm still going through it, alhamdulillah, with good guidance, and alhamdulillah, these brothers here actually have been part of that. So may Allah bless them, and for all the good I do, inshallah, the people that have invested in me, they're able to reap some of the benefits and rewards, inshallah. So that's just a bit about me, yeah, inshallah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, it's good seeing Ayo, man, the journey, like just observing you
appreciate
over the last, how long, is it 4 years that we've known you? Did we know you
Yeah,
Just
4
after-
years.
just
4
after-
years.
You know,
Yeah.
you know, I was saying this yesterday. I always forget how like we just meet new brothers and they just kind of slip
And
and
they slip
integrate
in,
so
integrate,
easily.
yeah.
I always just forget.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
it's 4 years we met you.
I feel like I've known
Yeah.
you for longer though.
Yeah,
I feel
trust
like
me.
it doesn't feel like
Trust
4
me.
years.
I was actually, because
I'm sure I sat next to you Americans when I was 7 years
bro,
old.
you know, when I first read, I only knew mostly Asian Muslims.
Yeah, yeah.
So I knew there's Muslims in Nigeria because my family's from Kwara State, so there's mostly Muslims there. But I never interacted with Nigerian Muslims. So when I saw these brothers,
Is it the street of Tars? You just came to one something
yeah,
in the mosque.
I think
one.
the
How-
first.
or was it bro?
No,
How far?
who was it? I think it was Aziz that invited me. He got me involved, Aziz, because I knew him through another friend at uni who was doing medicine.
Aziz, what?
Abdul Aziz, yeah, he invited me. I feel he's the one that brought me into the mosque.
The one that's our age. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Was it
then-
him?
Yeah, I believe so, bro.
That's so random.
Honestly.
If I was to pick anyone, I would have picked.
Yeah, honestly.
Because I already knew him through friends.
Oh, fair. Yeah.
So I was like doing Eid up with them, and he was
Yeah.
like, "Come." So I came, and I met you guys, and I was just, my eyes were wide, bro. I was like, you know, I never, because the thing is, it was like I saw you guys as like you maintaining the Muslim aspect of yourself, but you're also Nigerian, you're also black in London. You get what I'm saying?
It was street
So-
of Tar, innit?
Yeah, it's treated. Yeah.
I felt like Waj. Or I think it was. Yeah.
I was overwhelmed, to be honest, bro. I hadn't seen that many just like that, like brothers, like Nigerian brothers, like Muslim brothers. So it was quite like, you know, I was just taking it all in, alhamdulillah. And then I came to camp as well.
Yeah,
camp,
straight away. Yeah. He did the crash course. Yeah, he dived in. Yeah.
Camp was good for me though, because I felt like I was able to like build myself up like Islamically, and I hadn't really learnt the basics by this point. So camp is actually the
That
first
was
thing.
when we were learning how to pray, wasn't it? That
Yeah, like.
our first.
And I was
show,
asking all questions, bro, because I wanted to know the nitty gritty of it all. Do you know what I'm saying? So I was trying to understand it. So it was that time, man, was very formative for me. And maybe for you guys, it was just it was another camp. But for me, it was like I was really taking in a lot of stuff, bro. Like, you know, and that's why I say like thank you guys just for being there, for being patient and just being friendly faces. Do you know what I mean? So, and I'm a ghost as well. So whenever I come back, it's all open arms. So may Allah reward you guys for that as well.
I mean, that's beautiful to hear. Though.
me.
That's that.
It is, man.
Yeah, that it shows why it's important to the things that the mosque as a whole and youth as a whole is doing.
Yeah.
With the will and help of Allah, that you're able to affect people's to be such an integral
What
part.
didn't you even realize?
Exactly, fam. Because that's the first time I've heard that, and that's alhamdulillah. Take 5 minutes. That's sick, man. That's it. And you've been like, as I said, like a sick addition. That's how you really slotted in seamlessly.
Yeah.
Like just one of the bros, just one of the men, man. It's beautiful.
No, I appreciate it.
And that's why you need them community type of. That's why you need them type of things there.
They're too important, man. Can't be understated. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so going back, so just on that, now moving on. Ibs, you
were talking about the whole community and activists going out. So one thing I kind of picked up on that you mentioned, and you kept on saying that when activists kind of go out to kind of, I guess, branch out and make more connections, that seems a little bit odd to me because I don't see why an activist would necessarily have to leave their community to do those things. I don't see why you couldn't be an activist but still be a part of your community. So
I would say it's not necessarily leaving your community completely. It's more like, how to say, again, just to use like it's like you're going out like for the day to like fight your battles, and then you come back in the evening to rest.
Okay.
But there's a lot going on out there when you go out. You know, maybe out like say 12 hours out there battling, and then you come back, kind of thing.
Okay.
So you end up spending more time out there on the field than you are with your community.
Yeah.
And also another thing is that it's interesting because I have conversations with the community, right? And like just maybe it's imams, community leaders, or like even just like, you know, if I'm working organizations I've worked in, other Muslims, or just like in the mosque or just uni, right? And I ask a lot of them, like, you know, why don't you maybe engage in some of these aspects of stuff? and a lot of them will tell you straight up it's a fitna, like it's too dangerous, like, do you know what I'm saying? And I have to agree with them as well. It is like, it really is. But the thing is, and I've had this conversation with my colleagues when I'm working in my community work, like people my age, and I'm like, the only thing is somebody has to do it at the end of the day, kind of thing. I think I'm in a good place to do it because I can articulate certain Islamic standpoints and principles in a way that non-Muslims can understand. And most of that comes from the fact that because I used to be a non-Muslim, I usually go off of how would I wish I could have heard it, kind of thing. You know, because sometimes I'll be honest, the way Muslims explain stuff, you know, when I was coming to the faith especially, I was like, I can't connect with that. Like either it's too much or it's just like the wording is just not, it's not something I can understand.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in my community work, I phrase things, I don't compromise, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay, 100.
Even if I get cooked, do you know what I'm saying? You'll cook me,
100%,
go at me, but
that's important, yeah.
that's something I and I'll be honest, I've probably lost maybe some job opportunities, some, standing with people. Maybe it looks like I have a level of popularity, but it doesn't, it comes with the flip side as well. And maybe that popularity is like, there's a lot of people there, but are you really connecting with each and every individual or not? And, some people are just around because of clout as well. Do you know what I'm saying? Let's be honest. So there's these kind of downsides to it. And I was kind of just telling this person, like when I was chatting to them, I was like, the thing is like, if we had more people who are principled in these kind of spaces, in these spheres, then it takes the burden off of people like me, kind of thing. Do you get what I'm saying? Because if we all disengage, there will be decisions being made on our behalf by, there are some Muslims in those spheres, bro, but some of them will compromise in a heartbeat, snap. They'll compromise. And I've seen that happen, man. And, it makes it very difficult it's that kind of thing of, if you go to work and you're asked to pray, and all they're like, oh, come, we'll go in pub. You're like, no, I don't go pub, I don't do this. And then they're like, oh, but what about him? We saw him drinking.
Yeah.
Or he doesn't pray. Why are you praying? Why are you being so? And then you have to explain, no, yeah, okay, you don't want to, you're not going to takfir this person. But you have to be like, well, that's what he's doing, but this is actually the way we're supposed to do things. And I'm not going to make a judgment on him in that sense, but this is my requirement of my faith. It's a core tenet or something I need or something I shouldn't do. But it then brings that extra burden of responsibility on you, kind of thing. And that's the thing with me. Maybe, some people ask, why do you think you're best placed to do this stuff? And I feel like I have a thing where if I see something wrong, I just have to.
Innate inside you.
I have to. If I don't do something, it's going to be on my mind. Of course, it doesn't mean, everything I see, I have to do it. But if I know I have a skill or something I can say that 100. I can use on it, and to be honest, that's maybe been to my detriment at some points, but
probably
I'm sure it has, bro. I have to be honest. And I feel like now I know my limits a bit more, which is why I don't get in. Before I used to jump in anything. Now I have to risk assess it. Fill out the form. Do you know what I mean? I have to fill out that form. Is it worth it? Weigh up the risk and benefit. So
good.
But yeah.
Before we continue, I think it's important that we define activist, or I guess attach a definition to what you're doing or an explanation of what you're doing to provide some kind of contextual backbone to most of the conversations we're having. So what would you, obviously you mentioned FOSIS, which is, kind of organizational body for Islamic societies and different universities. Is that right? And I'm guessing within that, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of kind of lobbying for, for not allowances, but for want of a better term, allowances for Islamic societies to practice the way they want, to get the same rights as student unions, those type of things. Is there does it go? Would that be a core part of your activism, or would you say it goes wider than that? How would you kind of define what you're doing?
I tend not to use the word activist or activism anymore. So if you've noticed, I've been saying community work. On my bio as well, I say community worker as well. I don't say activist. The reason why is I feel like the term has been co-opted. So I feel like they called Tommy Robinson an anti-Islam activist. BBC has called him that. Other news outlets called him that as well. I don't know if you guys are sort of on Twitter a lot. I think some people like Usher, Priyanka Chopra and someone else. They're doing this whole activist. It's like The Voice for activists. You kind of come present your cause, and you kind of, you know, they'll give you money depending on what is the most neediest cause for entertainment. And I found this is what is happening with the term activism and activist. It's becoming a glamorized term, or it's just being given to every Tom, Dick and Harry. So for me, I kind of stood back a bit. People will call me an activist, and I don't say no, I'm not. But you're not going to hear me calling myself
an activist,
one. Because I think as well, a lot of people who have used that term in, you know, pop culture have really, as I said, they've glamorized it, and they've also, there's an aspect of self-righteousness that comes with it. And arrogance and self-righteousness is something you have to, when you're in the public sphere, bro, especially when you have people cheering you on,
biggest fitna,
you have to, that's why I told you, I every 6 months or so, I take 1 or 2 months off Twitter. I just ghost. I don't tell anyone I'm leaving. I'll just stop using it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to, you know, once you tell people you're leaving, then you have to deal with the interactions that come with that.
Yeah.
I think the last one I did was July or August. I just ghosted for a month. I didn't check the app, I deleted the app. And I was just, I feel lighter, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because, you know, so I think if I'm going to talk activism, community work, you know, if I'm going to talk about it, it's more, so I was in Phosis, I left in the end of 2020. And I was working in my students' union from 2017, 2018 academic year. I'll describe it as bettering the community around me, basically. That's what I would say. But of course, that's a blanket kind of general. But if you want to add something called sacred activism or sacred community work, then it's bettering the community around me with or working on a righteous cause with Islamic principles at the foundation and the base level of every interaction and everything I'm doing. Every thought, every interaction, everything. So that's what I would say my role is. And if there comes a point where I do feel like I'm getting a bit arrogant, right? Or I do a lot of, you have to do a lot of self-reflection. Like maybe it turns to overthinking, but I analyze each and every one of my interactions. And if I feel like the ego is creeping in a bit too much, then that's what maybe I'll take 2 days break, 3 days break again. And I'll just do some other stuff that was just going to humble me, you know, makes me, maybe I'm just going to focus on my exactly balanced. That's what I'm saying. Like you need that, bro, because I feel like a lot of the people you see with a lot of big following, or they have a lot of people, I'm not saying I have a big following, but I'll be honest in that I have to be honest with myself that I think a lot of people see what I'm doing, because people come to me and say, do you know, I saw this. And it always, because I like to keep my mind kind of, you know, just who's around me kind of thing. I prefer that. If you think too much about everyone's looking, you start to get paro. And I've been there before. So when someone comes and tells me, you know, I saw this or I saw that, then I'm like, whoa. It just reminds me, like, because, you know, alhamdulillah, like I've had the opportunity, like I featured in like even a book a few years ago. And someone from uni came and told me, I was like, you know, because she's from Malawi. She's like, you know, I know people in Malawi who know you. And after that, I just had to take some steps back, because once someone puts that into your mind, it starts to draw up something. It's that ego kind of like, and you have to stay away from that.
I think it's really good, and it's really commendable that that's something that you've noticed within yourself, and that you have the ability to know that you need to reflect and sometimes take a step back, because we see in every day now that people will build up that kind of following, and it will get to their head, and it almost becomes seamless with their job. They can't differentiate between what's their role and whether it's their ego or not. So I think it's really commendable that you've noticed that, and you know that sometimes it's time to take a step back and I guess remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing and keep on that track. So
what would you say, do you have any external like people or kind of mentors or guides that you kind of in charge to kind of, you know, keep an eye on what I'm doing, and please tell me if
I'm straying.
You think I'm straying, or would you say, do you have anything like that? Obviously we have Allah.
Yeah, I wouldn't. So I'll be honest with you, and I've been thinking about this. I wouldn't actually say I have any personal mentors, which obviously makes all of this a lot more difficult. It also means that, and a lot of that has been because I think a lot of people are busy, to be honest with you. And sometimes I don't always feel comfortable because I've been in that position where people are asking a lot from you and you're struggling to give it. I don't like doing that with other people. I know. So it's more of a thing of like, there are people who I'm on good terms with. They can be very close friends, or they're friends. We've got a good bond. I may not see them all the time, but I'd like to think, you know, if I said something mad, those people should feel free to message me. And I'm not the kind of person, I hope anyway, that I've had people who, you know, come at me in certain ways. And something I developed for maybe like 4 years ago is that even if you're very rude to me, I still have to reflect on what you said and I have to extrapolate. It's a very painful process each time and it doesn't get any easier, to be honest. But even if you swore at me, you used some personal stuff, I will spend time examining the content of what you told me. And if there's something that I think is right there that I can take, then I'll take it.
Just on that is phenomenal advice that I'd say to everybody. No, levels,
Honestly,
because if the world acted, and this is not even to guess you, don't worry, it's not nothing to do with you. But if the world took this advice, if the world took this advice, there's a lot of arguments that have been going on for years that would cease to exist if people could learn to just extract the core. I call it critical thinking. Because fam, like, anyway,
you're right. I'm not gonna say that. So there's a difference between knowing what I should take and implementing it. There's still a gap there. Sometimes a very big gap.
Of course.
But I'm gonna keep it in my head, and that's the journey of life, right? Like the Prophet ﷺ, you know, he was 40 when he started to receive revelation. So we're still young. So for me, I kind of take it as like, you know, I don't want to burn out now and you know, sometimes when you try and do too many things, which I have tried to do, you'll burn out. And I've learned from that. And also, like, I know that I can't change myself or my mind and everything I'm doing quickly, but I keep those things there in my mind that this is something I need to take. And even from Twitter beefs, bro, like that people come at me and, you know, it's a bit of a theatre when you have a Twitter beef. Still, and I may not show it to people, but I'm still going to take what was said. Like, that's just the way I want to conduct myself. But because of that, I feel sometimes I can be pulled different ways. But I would rather that than I was like, oh, I don't like you, so all your advice is null and void to me. That's how people end up going just way off course.
Because
I'm saying
tunnel vision, they lose
exactly.
World,
So in terms of mentors, you know, I don't say I have a particular one, but I will say like there are people who I would go to, right? But for different things. Some of them it's like they understand more the black experience. Some of them they're more politically ingrained. Some of them I'll just go to a sheikh. I have a couple of shuyukh I'll go to, like who I ask, you know. But, you know, usually I'll go to the ones that I know I've engaged maybe even a little bit on these issues, so they have some context. Do you know what I'm saying? Or I'll go to, you know, sometimes I speak to my wife about these things, like, or sometimes we've chatted actually when we've been at like gatherings and stuff. And I know it may seem like a catch-up chat, but if you say something that is poignant, I'll actually take it on. So that's kind of how I see it. It would. Somebody's a bit excited out there. Obviously, I would like a mentor, but I think because of the different spheres I'm in, I'm doing medicine. I'm from like Black Nigerian heritage. I'm also what do you call it? Like doing all this kind of community work. I feel like to find maybe somebody who's
covers all of those branches,
it's a bit difficult. So, and I was actually having this conversation with my wife.
Doesn't have to be one person, maybe.
That's the thing. That's the thing. So I was having this conversation with my wife and she was like, you should take, like, maybe have a few people and then you take from them different things. And it helps actually, but you don't, I guess at the same time, like, if you have like loads and loads and loads of people throwing stuff in, then it might, I don't think I have too many like that, but say you saw a thread or a statement that was mad and you guys brought up, I wouldn't be angry. I'll be like, actually, he wants to engage with me. She wants to engage with me, you know. And I get random people like maybe coming into my DMs and they want to discuss like deep stuff, and I have to kind of draw back a little bit because I don't know some of these people. They don't. Not all of them have DPs and stuff. But it was one of you guys or somebody who I've got a relationship with, or they've invested in me before, like
I have to cut that out.
yeah.
I just named.
Do you not like being mentioned? Okay.
Talk freely.
There's a brother.
Talk freely.
There's a senior brother within
Alpha Lima.
Yeah,
That's his code name. That's his code name.
Alpha Lima. Let's call him Alpha Lima. He pulled me aside, like when I was very active, like, you know, I was very, very active, and he was just as like, you know, what's going through your mind kind of thing. And I didn't talk to him every day, but like I messaged him about it, that what you did actually, it was something I really needed, and nobody had done for me. He just pulled me aside. He was like, because I'll be honest with you guys, and this is something that this is something that can happen to some what do you call it, Muslim activists or community workers that go deep into it. The justice element of stuff, and justice is a core principle of Islam, but let's say a secular or non-Islamic version of justice starts to supersede the Islamic side. Or even if it's still the Islamic, you know, what do you call it? Concept of justice, just the chasing justice aspect in the material way starts to supersede. Basically, So, you know,
to the point where it's almost like you forget that justice ultimately lies with Allah, and ultimate justice.
You can't control every outcome.
100%.
Yeah, I've seen people do that, by the way. That's another thing. We'll go on to it, but just to finish this point, right? He actually pulled me aside and said, you know, and I didn't know this at that point, because maybe I think I reverted. It was like 1 month before I started my students' union job. Yeah. So I didn't have time.
This is what I was going to go on to next.
To learn the basics, bro. I went straight into everyone wants you to do something now. Do you know what I'm saying? And he sat me down and he was like, you know, if you leave your salah, you can do all of these things. You're not getting in. Like he told me, he said, you're not going to Jannah. If you just leave all your salah, you say, I'm too good for this, and you're chasing just this. And obviously I'd read the Quran, like, but it didn't, not everything is gonna process. Let's put it that way. It entered
like priorities.
Exactly. I didn't know how to organize the priorities. And when you're something you're passionate about, you can have thought it out, but then you just become fixated. And as well, because when I was working in Students' Union, I think I was representing like 15,000 students, because I was the black minority ethnic officer. So it's like everybody from like a non-white background, I was representing them. Bro, I'd have hundreds of emails in my inbox every day. I come into work and there's a student waiting for me. They wanted to complain about something, or a staff member had something they wanted to complain about. They wanted to sort out meetings, this, that, events, this, that. I come in at 9, I finish at 9. And I wasn't getting paid for the extra hours. Once it hits 5, they call it toil. You take it off your own self, but you can't take time off. So I was constantly, and he was just like, yeah, you need to stay on top of your salah, like. And when he put it towards me like that, it was making me think. And then that's when we went camp. And when I was hearing the hadiths and we were talking about the ayat, I was like, yeah, this is serious. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I need to reorganize. And that's why after that was the turning point for me. So when I've done talks and I've done, even with non-Muslims, by the way, if there's an opportunity, I'll slip in Islamic principles. Like, one thing I like to talk about is the spiritual. We talk about physical, mental, emotional. There's the spiritual as well. Your soul has an aspect in, you know, so I try and implement these things in everything I'm doing. And when it comes to my, alhamdulillah, like I feel like, you know, when I was in Infosys and when I was just doing independent community work, like, you know, even in the ethos that I'm trying to create with my team, it's one of, you know, I have to apply this to myself. Allah comes first. And there's hadith actually speaking to this, right? The Allah comes first, right? The hadith basically, it says, it was one of the Sahaba, I think his name was Salman, right? And he said, you know, you have a right, Allah, a right to Allah, then a right to yourself, then a right to your family. And it goes in that order, right? That he says it in. And then, so give everybody their right,
Darda, they mentioned it in the thing yesterday.
Give everybody their right, do you get what I'm saying? That's something we have to live by. And another person asked the Prophet ﷺ, they asked him, is that true? And he said that Allah, Salman has spoken the truth. So he said, so Allah's first, if you're not doing if you're not praying your salah, if you're not fasting Ramadan, if you're not giving your zakat, if you can give your zakat, if you're not being understanding and kind to people, if you're just being malicious, and if you're gossiping, and if you're doing all these things, right? And you're combining all these sins, you know what I'm saying? It's going to either reduce the efficacy of what you're doing, or it's going to cancel it all out completely, depending on what you're missing out, right? Yeah. And then yourself, if you're not eating and sleeping well, you know, one thing I have to grapple with is my sleep. I sleep broken sleep. That's just the way I've always been. But it's something I have to be honest with myself. I have to make that better.
Yeah.
And then also, one thing, if people don't know me, I like food too much. Someone can carry me away with the good food. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So that's my problem. And you know, I will always, you know, especially if I'm, you know, stressed a bit, you'll just find me in the chicken shop or in, you know, rodeos is close by. I'll just find me in the burger shop. You know what I'm saying? I'm just munching on something. But your body, you know, if you don't take care of it, you know, German Donner's another one. That thing, when you eat it, it feels like your heart's gonna pop. I had to stop these things recently.
Yeah, kebab is demonic, fam.
Yeah, and it's too tasty.
It's too, fam, that's one of those foods that I just said, you know what? When you eat it, 3 days later.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So even recently, I just started juicing vegetables and fruits together just to try and, you know, help give me a bit more energy. And then also like, your interactions with people, your family. That's the next one, your family. You know, there's a hadith which speaks about the best one actually is not somebody who has perfect ties with their family. The best one is the person whose family, they're trying to cut those ties actually, or they're not being good onto this person, and the person still strives to hold on to that family link. I will send the hadith to you guys.
Yeah, I found it. I'll put it on the screen.
But
I haven't actually heard that one. But yeah.
That one struck me, you know, because we don't all have easy family dynamics out here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we won't go into that today, but yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But
you do what you can, right? Yeah. And then also, not just family, but the friends and people who have invested in you. Like, you know, I had a friend actually, he had a family member that passed, and out of his friends, I was the only one that kind of came to the memorial, kind of thing. You know, and yeah, you know, you'd have thought, you know, as Muslims, you know, everyone turns up to the wedding, but we have to be honest with ourselves. For our close ones, do we always turn up? And maybe some people think, maybe if the relative is not the mum or the dad, it's not that bad, but if it's especially if it's a close one or somebody, you know,
it's your right upon your brother. That,
do you get what I'm saying?
Janazah,
So that's the thing of like, you know, doing these kind of things like is important, and he was very grateful for it. You know, it's very. I think I was the only one that came actually out of like the group, and he said it's significant. You know that, you know, so it's kind of like we have to kind of weigh up these things. There's a lot of things to weigh up. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, when you're married as well, your rights into your wife, the way you treat her, you know, the things you give her, the way you behave. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And all of these things, it can feel like you're balancing a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, like, we're not here for that long. You know, in the timeline of human history, our life is a speck on that thing. So it does, you know, there's times where, you know, we've all had those times where it's not even just a hard day or hard month, it's a hard year or a couple of years, but inshallah it passes at some point. So it's just doing your best to balance those things. But I always say, and after all those things is when you do your community work. And if you feel like certain of those things are lacking. So in the last year, because I was sorting out getting married and my medicine stuff was up here,
of course,
and I had personal things to sort out, I scaled back on the community work. So like I wasn't even talking too much on Twitter for some time, or I wasn't going to events, I wasn't doing research, I wasn't doing stuff. I was just focusing on life.
It sounds good, that priorities.
Yeah. And then inshallah, when things, you know, get better and everything's settled, then you scale up a lot more. So
Ibs, did you?
Yeah, this is what you mentioned before is another thing I kind of wanted to go into. So you mentioned that you kind of started your community work like very, very early into your journey with Islam. So how did you handle that basically? Because I would imagine that doing community work, it's a massive responsibility on a Muslim, number one, because obviously you need to make sure that the message you're passing, because when you're in that kind of position, like you said, it puts a burden on you that you kind of have to be perfect. So how did you kind of handle that as a new Muslim, dealing with your own journey and then being someone that people are kind of looking at as a community figure?
And is that something you'd advise? I wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise. Neither would I. So like, was it hard or
Well, I made a lot of mistakes. That's why I'm laughing. I'm remembering some of them. Some of them were a bit. Alhamdulillah, it's not something that a lot of people can see, but there were people who, so at the time in the sabbatical officer role, there were 7 officer roles, like full time, and I had 4 other Muslims there. There were 4 other Muslims with me, so there were 5 out of 7 of us Muslim. So there were 2 sisters and 2 brothers, and those guys know who they are. I won't say their names obviously, but may Allah bless them until this life and the next abundantly, because even if they weren't always chatting to me about stuff, the way they conducted themselves and the way they behaved, because I can imagine looking back, it must have been a bit difficult for them kind of knowing how to approach me, you know, what to do, what to say kind of thing. Like, because I would, how to explain it? It's kind of like when you come from being a non-Muslim to a Muslim, even though you very much resonate with the principles of Islam, and Islam is a religion, otherwise you wouldn't be in the religion in the first place, to start implementing them, and there's a lot of stuff to implement. You know, if you just go from not knowing the religion to knowing the religion, right, becoming Muslim, right?
Islam affects every aspect
exactly.
of your life.
There's a lot of stuff.
Everything.
Even I had to get the hang of there's a Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, and then Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I was like, what is going on? Like, how did we get here? Do you know what I'm saying? All these things I was trying to, because you know what I'm saying? Because I will speak to some of the brothers, like, and they're gonna tell me Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and I was like, how do I even respond to that? So imagine I'm grappling with that, and then you're going up here to how do you interact with people from different political spectrum. So I really commend those brothers and sisters, because if even in my place, I would be wondering, how do I kind of deal with this? Do you know what I'm saying? You know, but they were, mashallah, they were compassionate. They did their best to be understanding. And when I needed a bit of shaking, they were I didn't always take it at the time, but I told you, I had just extrapolated at the time, even if I didn't like it. Do you know what I'm saying? And I remember conversations that they've probably forgotten, because it's still stuck with me till now that I'm trying to implement them. So I think, obviously I wouldn't recommend it, because, you know, it was obviously by Allah's will, but some of the pressures that I faced can just push you out of the faith, because you're not ready. You're not ready.
You're not ready. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And I think maybe a good thing was that I wasn't representing Muslims purely. It was like people from ethnic minorities.
Yeah.
So that was more the focus, but obviously Muslims came into play. And one thing I will say is that if anybody does know people that are reverting, or even if they've been Muslim for, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, the mindset transfer from being a non-Muslim to a Muslim, and the things that you're used to seeing and being around to things that you now do, people need support with that. Because, I'll even say like, there's just stuff which we as Muslims know we just don't do it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the way you interact with people from the opposite gender, for example. Like that's a huge struggle for a lot of people who convert, because when you go into non-Muslim society, that in a lot of places
it's encouraged.
There's
it's
I still
glorified.
kept, even like people like me, I still say I kept my boundaries. Do you know what I'm saying? But once you become Muslim, it's like, for example, you meet non-Muslims. I know some non-Muslim women, they don't hug. For example, hug is just a greeting.
Yeah,
you get what I'm saying. But when you become Muslim, it was like, nah, sorry, I don't like even hold. Like I didn't shake hands. And people are like, why can't you shake my hand? Like they're trying to force it. I'm like, just, do you know what I'm saying? Like that kind of stuff puts like pressure on you, like
especially when it's new to you. Like we've grown up in.
That's the thing.
But
this, it did feel natural to me, bro. Don't get me wrong. It was. I preferred it because it was like, I feel like we can all keep our boundaries this way. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and it, look, we look in the Me Too era, right? Like a lot of these things happen because there are men who can't control themselves. Like someone will be brushing past somebody from behind and it leads to a bad interaction. Do you get me? And even, you know, these things of going for dinners alone, like, and it starts off as a business thing and then, do you know what I'm saying? So for me, it was like all these things are like Islam's giving me the thing where it cuts all of this. It's a lot safer for everybody.
There's no command in Islam that is not beneficial to the community, to the individuals, and to your soul. Like it's all.
And even if it doesn't talk about where it can get to, if you stick by it from the jump, you're never gonna get there.
Exactly. So for me, this was why I just was like, it just leads to a good for everybody, like stuff like this. But it was the reaction from non-Muslims, especially ones that you knew before. Why are you doing this? Why did you come to this religion? I don't think it's good for you. You're changing. You know, this is weird of you. That pressure, that's from people who, you know, they were, you know, you're on good terms with them. You're close friends. And they're putting that pressure on you. How are you going to feel about that? So you need a support for that. Do you know what I'm saying? Now, when I was doing stuff, you know, outwardly in my campus, what I found was that why it was difficult is that I had my own set of values. You know, I would say, you know, I had my own set of values, but now it was like, now I'm Muslim. How do I reconcile Islamic values? And sometimes they were clashing with the values I had before. How do I reconcile that? And especially, typically, I would say often certain Islamic values that you have aren't popular with non-Muslims.
Of course.
Do you know what I'm saying?
That's the biggest
fitna. I was already dealing with pressure from non-Muslim friends. Now the non-Muslim people you're representing or you're working with, how do you deal with the pressure of both? And I'll say it was like, you know, when you're putting pressure on a rock. I felt like I was really stressed with that kind of thing. And I would be honest and say at the time, I kind of compromised where I was like, okay, you know, what I would do is my set of values, my activist principles at the time, you know, I'll put that over Islam just for now. I'll still pray. I'll still fast Ramadan. I'm still doing these things, but my values come first. And I was doing that for a little bit, you know, and I was kind of continuing. In that process, because obviously, how to say, if you're in a role like that, people are always holding you accountable, and I'm all for accountability. However, in the process of accountability, you can't start to worship people and make people into your ilah. You know what I'm talking about? We did the tafsir of, and when we were doing that tafsir, I was clocking myself actually as well. We did the tafsir at camp of Surah Al-Fatiha, and we were breaking it down. What is an ilah? Right? It's a God. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, and even we were breaking down the shahada. It's a God. You make ilah is like something you worship. And I would have definitely, I'd have to be honest, I made my own intellect, my own ilah, like I know best kind of thing. My intellect was my ilah, like I know best. And I also made people my ilah. What do the people want? So I'll go along with what is popular. The thought processes and the ideologies that are popular today and the way of organizing and the way of speaking on issues. You'll go on Twitter, you know, and I'll be honest, there is aspects of like black community activism that I know I can't fit into. Because it requires you to speak in a way that I'm not going to speak, and it requires you to
cater
talk.
To people
and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
and it may make you feel isolated, but I know I'm sticking to my principle in that sense. But at the time, I wasn't like that. I'll go along with things.
Can I just jump in? So I think we saw this with the whole Black Lives Matter thing. That when your ultimate purpose or your ultimate goal, or what you're kind of answerable to, is not something fixed and something perfect like Allah is, you'll find that you will always fall down and you'll always be susceptible to corruption. And like we saw this with the BLM thing, where there's a group of people who had an ideal which they believed was strong, firm and crisp, but then what you saw was that when things that they didn't necessarily agree with or things they didn't necessarily think fell into this group that they represented, came into it, suddenly it's division and infighting and the whole thing. What happens to it? Where is it gone? It's broken. It breaks down.
Even with BLM, because you know, a lot of people in the UK movement and the US movement, like in the US, like there's places BLM doesn't organize because there's other black community groups that don't agree with what they're doing.
Exactly.
Right, and there's also, you know, questions around, you know, they have a lot of corporate links as well. You know, so there's all this kind of things going on. And for me, I have been honest, I've done talks on this where I don't feel BLM caters fully to me as a black Muslim in terms of my values and the way they organize.
It never will.
So, and this is the thing, like, I've been honest about that. Like, you know, and people may not like it, but it is the truth. Because if I was to come in and stay authentically to my religion, and that's fine. Look, that's fine.
And let me even just, Carl,
Yeah.
and this is why, just for the people listening and watching, it's important to not feel pressure from outside sources. For example, if you're a black Muslim and, you know, BLM is going on, if you're a black Muslim and, you know, this campaign is going on, and it may seem to appeal to an aspect that you agree with, or a lot, but at the end of the day, this is why it's not routine for Muslims to be really, or it shouldn't be routine for Muslims really to be getting involved in these type of things that don't have Islam at their core, because when you start to follow this campaign, this sort of narrative, this sort of they will always compromise you, and it might not be at the start, but it will come into play. And this is why you shouldn't feel bad to say, oh, we're going this march, this protest, we're going, don't you agree? You're black. Yeah, but I have my core beliefs, I have my foundations, and if it's to do with this fear, if it's a Muslim thing, Islamic thing, cool. This is not me saying I disagree with you. You not attending that march is not saying that you disagree with the fact that Black Lives Matter. It's because you're setting your stall out early instead of getting tripped over later on in the line.
I get
sorry,
you.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's cool. There's a book actually by someone called Imam Dāwūd Walid called Towards Sacred Activism. So I think everybody, inshallah, if you want to read that book, it gives you a kind of basis how to engage with different groups. Personally, if people don't want to go to BLM marches, I'm not going to be on your neck. Do you get me? For me, it's more like, and this is outside of like black Muslims now. Like, for example, there are some people in the community who say, yeah, don't go to marches, but I will see them at the Palestine march, for example. Do you get what I'm saying? Just like kind of keeping it consistent. Because I'll go to a BLM march, but because it's that one thing, it's a moment kind of thing in that sense. But I won't go to organizing meetings and these kind of things, because I know if I'm to come authentically with my religion and my principles, you're either going to try and co-opt me and push me away from that. And I've seen that happen, not necessarily in BLM, but just, let's say, leftist circles. Or it's going to be like, we're going to clash and it's going to get very messy. So I remove myself from that early. Do you get what I'm saying? And for me as well, I don't think BLM they don't have the ownership of the whole narrative of, yeah, black people's lives do matter. Like, you're an organization for me. Like, the concept for me is something I believe in. So, but I know myself, and I've said this before, like, you know, I won't organize on a deeper level. Because I personally, I've made this thing to myself in terms of organizing, like, I would generally only go to a place where those Islamic principles are there. If they're not there, maybe it's going to be for a job that I'm actually doing it for. Do you get what I'm saying? Where you organize campaigns, maybe you're part of the NHS or something. But I'll need to make my barriers kind of clear as well in that sense. If, you know, I don't like tiptoeing. So if there's something I don't support, even if it's going to get me cooked, like, I'd rather kind of tell you. Of course, it doesn't mean like, if there's an opportunity to just take steps back quietly and we can do that, I'll do it. If I feel like I'm getting a bit pressured, things are closing in on me, I'll tell you, I'm sorry. You know, and I think as well as Muslims, we need to find a way of doing that a bit more. Do you know what I'm saying? We do it respectfully. There's no hatred. There's no nothing. And, you know, I respect you as an individual and as a person. But as well, I wouldn't force you, for example, to be Muslim and to come under my beliefs. Likewise, we need to have some of that as well. So please don't take it in a bad way, but this is just where my limit is. And, you know, if you want to speak about it more, let me know. But as I said, I do respect you as an individual, as a person. And we've all got our own beliefs here. We've all got our belief system. So, and that's how I kind of do it, kind of thing. But I've done it like that, and there's still people who, they go off on one. I can't help that. Do you know what I'm saying?
I'll ask both of you the question, but I'll let Ibs answer first. So, like, obviously, we heard Ayo just say there's Muslims that are in spaces that, because of the fact that, you know, that essentially their wavering makes it more difficult for other people coming into the space and trying to and trying to uphold Islamic principles, and it causes an issue where almost I guess misrepresentation of the religion within these type of spaces. That's I guess the issue. So like, how would you say we can combat that issue of misrepresentation of the religion in senior spaces? I'll let either of you answer first, anyway, if you want to think on it. You've got the experience, but it'll be good I want to hear outside and inside perspective.
So you're asking like as an individual. So like you use the example of maybe someone that was wavering in that kind of space before. What they should kind of do to maybe combat misrepresentation.
No. So we're just the issue of people in positions of representing Islam in spheres that are not necessarily Islamic. How do you combat the issue of those people wavering?
It's a difficult
which obviously
one.
leads to misrepresentation.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one because the issue obviously lies with those people that are misrepresenting Islam, and you can't necessarily go to them and tell them that maybe you need to take a step back and figure out yourself before representing Islam in this space. So then obviously you might feel like you have an obligation as yourself to now go in and do something about that. I would say for those people that might feel like they're wavering, reflection is important. And sometimes, like Ayo has said already, that sometimes you might need to take a step back and reflect on yourself before you decide that you can step back into the space and represent Islam properly. So that's for those people. But for others, it's difficult, man, because I don't think it's anything else other than stepping into that space and being assured of not being assured of yourself and knowing that you can step into that space and do a good job of it, and in turn showing those people that this is the correct way to do it. And again, that's now a burden on you, because you're not only representing Islam to non-Muslims, you're now also having to represent Islam to your fellow Muslims, but in a better way. So it's a big burden. It's not something that I personally would like to take on or do, because I think it is a fitna.
Yeah,
it is. And if you can avoid it, then why not? Not to say that anything that people in community work are doing is wrong, because obviously it's important. But for me, just personally, me as a person, it's just something that I would personally avoid.
And let me just bounce, because I want you to reflect on both. So like, I liken this type of situation or this type of this context to a conversation I've had with, let's say, some of the brothers that we know our age, and obviously Ibs will know more. So like, one of the common kind of complaints or issues we have, for example, is that it seems like the people, and this is not sending anywhere, but it seems like the people that you'd think are the ones that are your best place to, for example, give this talk to the kids. For example, maybe the more knowledgeable brothers amongst us in our kind of small little community are often the ones which seem to distance themselves from taking up those positions.
Yeah.
And I've had this conversation so many times with a lot of the brothers. I remember one brother in particular having this conversation, and they were speaking about the fact that even their big sheikh teacher, like, that would say to them, like, oh, this book that I'm teaching you, that's even a simple book, I'm not even qualified to teach it. And you'll see that it's a common kind of theme amongst the people that are, they're really striving, mashallah, to attain knowledge in the religion, that it's almost like the more knowledge they achieve, the more shy they become with the knowledge that they've gained. And it's almost, and there's various hadith on this that that I'll probably put in the screen. Shall remind me to do it. That the knowledge you have is a trust, and you've got a responsibility for that knowledge. And obviously the main kind of purpose for knowledge is to learn the religion and apply it better. And you find that one of the biggest fitna for the people of knowledge is that they become arrogant with their knowledge, and they become I'm learning. They learn literally to go out and tell people that they've learned this, to show themselves to be a person of knowledge. So there's that issue where they're kind of, it's an internal struggle, I guess, that it's like, I've got this knowledge and I've learned it, and I want to maintain my intentions that I'm learning. It's probably for the sake of Allah, but then I've also got this responsibility that people that are out there that don't have this knowledge that should have this knowledge, and it's for the people of knowledge to teach the people that don't have knowledge. So what do I do within this? Most people say that, I guess the best answer is that you seek your knowledge, and if you're going out, if you're in the public eye, if you're somebody, you know, who's a teacher, for example, it's upon you to be the embodiment of the knowledge that you're teaching, the embodiment of what you're teaching. When I now flip it back to to this type of activist or black activism or community work sphere, let's talk about us, for example, within youth, for example. So let's take it away from your specific example. So we've got kids, for example, that are younger than us, that a lot of the time we are the embodiment of, or to them, we're the example of what they should be like when they grow older, how they should apply the religion. When we might even be, a lot of the time, the primary source of Islamic education for them. What's our what's our responsibility? That's a trust that I say that's a trust that, you know, Allah has put on us. And it's a test from Allah. What do we do with that responsibility? Our responsibility is to ensure. Do you know what I mean?
I guess that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So if I would say my, you know, unsolicited advice to that sphere is for people in that sphere to almost ensure that the core thing is that they try to be the best Muslim they can. They try to learn as much of religion as they can, and make sure they're doing it for the right reasons, which is for their souls and for themselves to reach Jannah, to you know, to teach their family, all that type of stuff. Like you said, who has your responsibilities with Allah, the Hadith, to your family, in that order. Let it filter down, and then see how it affects your practice. Because I think that if a lot of people did that in these spheres, in these public domains, you'll find that a lot of them, not all of them, may leave that sphere. And what will probably happen is the quantity might decrease, but the quality will increase. But somebody will also, I know I'm waffling, but somebody will also turn around and say, as much as quality is important, the quantity is needed, because there's simply so many spheres that you need to have a Muslim voice in. If you don't have those voices, the whole thing falls apart. But I think that's the case where we have to put our trust in Allah.
I think sometimes, just going off of that, maybe it's a big statement, but I think it's better to have no voice there than the wrong voice.
Exactly.
That's what I was about, exactly.
Sometimes. And I've got different scenarios going through my head.
Yes.
Not necessarily some of them I can talk about, but there's been times I've said, you know what, it's been better that it would have been better if no one was there, rather than this person who's legitimizing, in fact, wrongdoing through the, you know, through a Muslim lens is actually there, kind of thing. In terms of just going on to what you said, like, I would say the thing is, those people do need mentorship, and they need very delicate and understanding and sensitive mentorship, because they've already got mentors in those spheres already that are guiding them down a certain path, right? We're looking at Muslims in these spheres. And as well, I think there's this kind of dangerous thing from Muslims who aren't in these spheres, who are like, oh, these are the activist Muslims, or they are the, you know, these are the social justice warrior Muslims kind of thing. The thing is, because I've interacted with a lot of these individuals, in my experience, 95% of them come across as sincere. Like, you can just see they have a passion, right? And I'll be honest, a lot of them take it upon themselves, or it's like, of course it's for experience, but also they don't see their communities at large, like local communities or Muslim communities, that getting involved in a lot of issues that are affecting them, right? And so for them, it's like, I need to do something about this, right? So I've seen a lot of people like that. But the thing is, if you compare it, like, if you get like a drop of like dye or something, or food coloring, and you have a swimming pool, and you drop it into the dye is going to be washed away. That's what happens to these people. So I know you were saying it is a fitna, but I think there needs to be like if you come in, that is a bit helpful, but it's still just another drop. It's like there needs to be something where people are coming in together, and there does need to be a sensitivity with it, because you know what happens, right? You know, so I think if you go back 20 years ago, right, and I've heard this from like older scholars and stuff, they say the dichotomy in the community, or the argument used to be, is it Sufi or Salafi kind of thing? Those were the main conversations happening. Now it's not that anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not that from what I've been hearing, what I've been seeing. It's, are you practicing or are you not practicing? Are you quote unquote conservative or quote unquote liberal? Are you an activist or are you not an activist? And these are the clashes that are kind of coming back and forth, back and forth. And the thing is, like, if there's not sensitive and understanding, like, because the thing is, the brother I told you took me aside, I'll be honest with you, if he came to me and he came with a lot of energy, like, what are you doing, all this kind of stuff, I would have still tried to take a little bit, but I think I'd have taken less. I have to be honest. I'm not going to say that, I'd have taken everything. I'd have taken less. I'd have taken less.
100%.
There are some people that, as soon as you come like that, they're not taking nothing. Do you get what I'm saying? Some of these people, even if you're not bringing them on side fully with what is right, if you're just there and they know you're there, and some of them will know you're not going to agree with everything they're doing, if you're just there, they'll appreciate it because you're still showing them that there's a doorway back into the community properly. Do you get what I'm saying?
So are these people? So would you say you are approachable to your brothers in terms of
me as an individual?
Yeah, you.
I don't know. Maybe some days yes, some days no. Do you know what I mean?
Because I think that's probably one of the biggest things, because nobody wants to give advice that nobody wants to come and advise somebody that they don't think wants their advice is gonna benefit from their advice. And for some people, a lot of the time, and you find this, I don't know, maybe when we discuss brothers, for example, that maybe being a bit off key, that is or sisters being a bit off key. That is sometimes it's better almost to just be there as a presence with your arms open, rather than to go and chase them, because you go and chase them, they can run away and never come back. So I think a lot of, and this isn't even about you, this is just about a general point. I guess you find that a lot of people, and you see it, anyone that's got a following or that seems to have a following or a high number of people listen to them or a voice, the more your voice grows, the less approachable naturally you'll become. And it's not even that, and you could have not changed at all, but people will just perceive you as being less approachable. So I think I think anyone that's got any sort of a following, a voice, that's seen as any kind of leader or anything like that, I think self-reflection, self-awareness is key. That it's just important for those people to constantly remind the people of their approachability. So for anybody in that kind of sphere that's that's really fighting a good fight, all of that kind of stuff, is their I would say it's more their responsibility, because it's an established, it's just known in life. Somebody, like, none of us feel we can just DM Bill Gates and he's going to reply. Do you know what I mean? It's just, the more bigger you get, the more there's a perception of unapproachability, whether it's true or not. So I'd say that, and I'd say that that's a key, because people are not going to it's not natural for people to just get up and say, this brother Ilyas, and I don't know, he was the vice president of student union at Cambridge University, and I see him being a bit everyone will observe it. Nobody, or it's not common for everyone to just think, I'm gonna go and advise that brother, because it's like, why would he listen to me? Do you know what I mean? It's almost an indication of your own kind of arrogance, even if I'm gonna talk to him and he's gonna listen to me. So all you can do is make dua and pray that somebody close to him is there to advise him, but not everyone has that person there. So I think if you are that close, like, not even talking about close, if you know there's a mutual respect, and it's not, I've maybe been in this position myself because I've had to be, and I don't look at myself as somebody who perhaps should be doing this, but I've had to do it because of the spheres I'm in, where people look at me as quote unquote the most practicing. I don't have any comments on that, but they look at me, right, and they think I've got they think I've got all, like, everything's together, kind of thing, compared to them. So I've had to have those conversations, and I don't know, like, again, I don't even think I'm equipped, or I should be having these, but necessity has meant that I'm the only one there, kind of thing. So I don't know, I kind of give it's kind of like testing the ground a little bit, just maybe. And the thing is, it's like, if I don't know them at all and I think it's inappropriate, or for example, if it's the opposite gender and I feel like it's gonna create an unhealthy and inappropriate dynamic, I won't do it. That's, even if I could do so, I'm not gonna put really myself at risk like that. So I have to judge it like that. But if I can, I'm gonna see just like where they're at. I'm not gonna go straight in with the convo. Sometimes it's like, you make a bit of a relationship. How are you doing? Like, how's the work? Oh, good to hear you're doing this. Just updating them.
Because I've had people who've come to me, they don't chat to me about anything usually. Like, and I can see them around, but they're not even going to really, you know what I'm saying? And the first thing they're going to say is, oh, I didn't like something you did. And I'm like, okay, we haven't even invested in a relationship before this. Mm-hmm. Or, look, even if you haven't invested in that relationship, like, if there needs to be some form of mutual respect there first. And again, it's the phrasing. If someone comes and says, yeah, I think what you did was really, like, it was really badly thought out kind of thing. You know, for me, first of all, let's have a phone call or voice note me kind of thing about it. Do you know what I'm saying? And, you know, I find I can kind of hear when somebody is like there because they care, and they're kind of like, as somebody who's just kind of like...
There's an etiquette to it.
Yeah, they want to assert their opinion more so. And they kind of trying to lay into me a bit. I've had that before, and I'm like... And even with those people, I will still accept, you know what, you're right, I should have done this better, but at the same time, I don't think you're going about the
Which
right
is
way.
important. It's important to, because don't lose that ear.
That's the thing, the etiquette, like, bro, in the last 2 years, even though, I would say the stuff I've done is definitely, like, been more of an Islamic understanding and basis behind it, I've still done stuff wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's just going to be me till the end of life. And... you know, I have to live with those things. I have to reconcile them. But alhamdulillah for the people who did pull me up and were like, like, they did it. Some of them were not always close to me, by the way. But they were like, there's a time and a place, for example, like, you know, if we're in a big group or gathering and then you say it out there, of course I'm not going to like that, you know. Message or voice note, like, kind of thing. Like, and I appreciate when people do that, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like in private as well. Some people who I have a decent relationship with, they're gonna go out in public to draw. What are you doing that for? Yeah. Let's speak and by the way, like, I've done this with issues where, like, because I did a lot of thinking on the approach. I've been on group chats where somebody has made a racist statement, right? And this has been from a fellow Muslim. There's about 200 people on this GC. I responded on that GC, but the way I responded was not with all the them I could have come with. But everyone knew that I wasn't leaving room for just to take, you know, you can take the mic further. Yeah. But when I messaged them directly, it's not as if I came with all the them in the world. But I was like, by the way, like, I messaged on the group in that way for a certain reason. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, because
it was a wider benefit.
And I said I could have actually come with a lot more vim, and a part of me wants to. Some people are gonna call me soft or whatever for that, but I actually just chatted to the brother, and I was like, you really need to understand what you said is actually very hurtful and is racist. He deleted it before many people saw it, and my comment was there, obviously. Like, do you know what I'm saying? He deleted it. And he chatted to me and he was like, thank you, by the way, for doing it in this way. In that way. Because the thing is, bro, I could have, and I've done this before, I've done different approaches. I could have come at this guy with vim, and I've done that before. I've drawn him out, rightfully, to be fair, for what he said on the GC, right? And he has then
group chat for any of our older listeners.
Sorry.
It took me a while, I was like...
I've basically gone at him, you know, with a lot of vim on. To be fair, depending on what people say, you know, sometimes people do need that, but you still come out with a certain etiquette and self-respect for yourself and the way you say it.
I've you know how many times I've said this? 90% of the time, it's the way you say it.
That's what I'm saying.
Rather than what you actually say.
Sometimes I say things that are actually hard, but you can see I haven't. It's the way it's phrased. It's not like, because people become defensive, and when they become defensive, it just turns back into a back and forth. And what happens at the end? To be honest, your ego will feel a bit satisfied that I told him about himself. You know what I'm saying? But did it really lead to the change that you wanted to see? By the way, you can be sincere and nice and all this to some people, and they're still going to go on with their stuff. I have to make that clear. But I found that there is a amount of people that if you pull them to the side, and you actually, I've done that with a lot of like people because it was done to me, and I like the way it was done, and I did it to other people, and I felt like they were more responsive. At the same time, there have been some who, whether you pull them aside or not, they're back on the same rubbish again the next day. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And those ones, then maybe you do have to come with a lot of him to them. You know what I'm saying? But again, I feel like even when I'm making threads and I'm going back and forth with people online, for example, I like to think that I try and keep a thing of like, if I'm going to talk about anything I don't like, it will be more so, you know, it's going to be about the behavior or something you've said. Do you get what I'm saying? Or I can be, what's the word, direct, and it can even be harsh, but I don't want it to become rude, if that makes sense. If there's a fine line, and maybe sometimes I cross that line, I'm not perfect, right? But it's putting all of that thought into your interactions. And you can imagine all of this is very taxing, bro. That's why sometimes I'll just leave stuff for like 2 months and I'm like, let me just, you know, I'll just be living my life. I can just, because for me, I told myself, if I'm going to, and I'll tell you the reason why that I actually came to all of these points is that, so going back to what you said about when I was in my students' union role and I hadn't been Muslim for very long, making people my ilah, my intellect my ilah, Allah disgraced me. And I'm happy he disgraced me. Every day I'm happy for it. He disgraced me and I needed to be disgraced. So what actually happened, I don't mind talking about this, is that there are certain people who don't like stuff I say and what I do. I'm not going to name those people. But let's just put it like that. And what they did, let's say that they're on the right wing of the spectrum. We'll put it that, like far right kind of thing. We'll put it like that. Yeah. So they went going through my sort of Twitter, like from when I was 15, and they found some incriminating things. You know, I was very young. I'm just in secondary school running about. Yeah. I didn't know I was going to do anything like this. And, you know, when you're 15, no one was giving me political education. You know, I was watching, you know, cartoons and Disney, whatever it is, bro. I'm just out here. You know what I'm saying? I'm just an idiot. I'm just a kid.
Not that there's anything wrong with cartoons.
Yeah, no, Disney. I watch cartoons till today, by the way, and I don't have a shame about it. Adventure Time, Adventures of Gumball, and kind of good stuff. And animes as well. Animes and cartoons are different. Come on. But some of you will be saying animes and cartoons are the same. It's not true. I have to push back on that.
I wish Tess was here to disgrace the two.
It's good. You trigger me. But you know what I'm saying? So I feel like, so they obviously drew out these things, and it was there's some sites that they actually do this. They target people who do certain aspects of work they don't like. And they were just exposing me and putting this out, and I had to release an apology, right? Because the stuff they got, it wasn't the stuff I had to apologize for. So anyway, when that happened, I felt like the same people who had been lifting me up didn't want to be associated with me anymore. That actually happened twice in the space of 3 months. So, but the second stuff that they went and found, I didn't mind it being found, but it was more controversial politically.
Yeah.
And I still defend it to this day, to be honest. So that happened twice in the space of 3 months. The same people that were using me, I would say, to get votes for their campaigns on a national student level, didn't want to chat to me. They didn't want to be involved with me publicly no more. They didn't want to be seen with me. They didn't want to be associated with me, despite using me to get votes before for videos, campaigns, and different things. Right? The same people who would platform me at protests, at marches, and all this kind of stuff, the same thing. Even some people, I wouldn't call them friends, but you know, people you see about, you know, you have a bit of convo with them, there's a nice vibe. They were acting like they didn't know me. And that kind of period of isolation, I was very isolated at that time, where I would say I was alone. The same people and things I was worshipping, because you worship your intellect's going to fail at some point. You can't plan for everything. So that was out the window. The people that you're trying to work to make them like you and do all this kind of stuff, and it's not purely for that, but you will mold a bit of your message, some of your message, or a lot of your message in a way that you know they're going to uptake it. You get what I'm saying? Those guys were out of the picture. So what are you left with now? Allah's the only thing you're left with. Islam is the only thing you're left with. So that was actually the turning point, another turning point for me, where I was like, yeah, nobody's going to look out for you. People will be here one day clapping for you. They want you. The next day they're gone. Did you get me?
100.
And that's when, you know, when I went to camp, we talked about Ilah. I also did some other courses, you know, they talked about Ilah kind of thing. And this was coming in like, these are the things I was worshipping. So now that's why I don't have as much. I don't really have an issue. Like, of course, it causes stress, and I'd rather not. But like, if you're gonna cook me, if you're gonna get at me for like my beliefs and stuff I've said or done, I don't say anything online, on podcasts or at talks that I know I can't defend. You know what I'm saying? And I know that, you know, even there are people who are on side of me today. Tomorrow you could be gone. That's what I have to deal with. Maybe in a few months' time, it's only gonna be like 10 people backing me. Inshallah, you know, if there's 10 people, maybe you've done something really, really wrong that you need to look at. But what I'm saying is as long as I've done stuff that doesn't contravene Islamic principles, right, then I'm good at the end of the day, because they're not going to be sitting there judging me on the day of judgment. They'll also be facing their own trials and tests. We're all going to be saying, nafsi, nafsi, my soul, I'm not bothered about you. If your parents are going to be saying, nafsi, nafsi, what about some people on Twitter or some people, you know, friends and everybody, like, you know, everyone's concerned about themselves. So I have to be concerned about what is going to get me there. Of course, it doesn't mean within Islam, you do have, you know, concern for others, but you have to save yourself first. So that's the thing. In my interactions now with different bits of community work and people, I told them, like, I think even with non-Muslims, right, like they can tell that there's a way I conduct myself. Or I would say, for example, I do have like a mental and medical school. She used to be the director of the medical school. And she kind of took me aside as well and was like, you're doing good stuff, but you need to...
Fish your books.
You need to, yeah, basically, she's like, you need to take it easy because you're building, like, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, you're doing a bit too much, and she can see, like, it's going to get in the way of things later, right? And, you know, having that kind of stuff where people take you aside out of genuine care and concern, you know, it does help. But she knows, like, I'm Muslim, and, you know, I'm sure she probably see me on social media, like, you know, things I post and what I'm doing, like, I don't want to hide the fact, but it doesn't mean as well I'll always be shouting every single thing I believe in off the rooftops, but you integrate it into your work. But if anybody's listening and they're kind of having that thing, I've been there where I've been, like, at the time in the student movement, like, I was one of the most popular, and I'm not saying that to gas myself up, it's just how it was. Like, people wanted me on their campaigns, and I think as well, I had supporters from different sides of the political spectrum, left, right, center, right, black, white, different, like, people, like, and obviously there's a lot of people that won't like that, especially if there's views that you have, like, for example, you know, supporting the Palestinian people, anti-racism, all these kind of things, being against colonialism, all these kind of things on campus. Like, people, they won't like that, in fact, you're bringing people from other different places. And then you drop to rock bottom where people don't even want to chat to you. They want to be seen in a picture of you because it's like, maybe I'll get dragged for it. That will do something to you. So if people are listening, if there's anybody like that you're chasing, something like that, it might even be career. Let's put out activism or community work. It might be career that you want to be a director and you're doing all sorts, jumping, flipping. The moment you make a mistake, these things can switch and everything you worked for is out the window, and then you're going to be left with scratch. And the only person, sorry, not person, but the only thing that's going to be there is Allah. Allah's going to be there for you. Islam is going to be there for you. And then you'll be asking yourself, why didn't I invest in my salah? I was too busy running off. I wanted to do this campaign.
This is key, yeah.
Even when I go to marches, by the way,
so key, man. Yeah.
you know the Shukri Abdi march that happened?
Yeah.
You know me, I'm an old man. I don't know. Yeah,
It happened during the BLM marches. There was a Shukri Abdi one that happened. I made the point of, we called the adhan, we prayed as well, like group salah, especially because she's Muslim. You have to do this, you know what I'm saying? But even not, I'm going to pray. If I'm going to a march, I'm going to pray. You have to. Some of us will go and we go to the march and Asr, you know, Dhuhr is passing. You know, if it's later on in the year, Asr's going to pass. Maybe Maghrib's going to pass. You miss everything. But you're at the march. Okay, yeah, you were there. But you didn't pray. You didn't do what you're supposed to. So at that march, we actually prayed like a proper like salah there. And the non-Muslims were there, and we, you know, they could see, like, we don't leave prayer at any time. It's a core part. Whether we're here, we're there. At work, the same thing. Is there a prayer room I can use? Heck, even if I'm driving, you know, and I'm like, crap, you know, you know, maybe I've been driving a long way, especially in the winter, you know, things start. Yeah. You can stop on the side for 5 minutes and find the, you know, quiet place maybe for sisters a bit, it might be dangerous for them. Maybe they'll have to find another arrangement or plan themselves better. But at least for the brothers, like, you can go into an alleyway or something or find a nice bit of pavement and then you just pray that and you've done, it's 5 to 10 minutes, just do it. 5, 6, 7 minutes and you're done. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, these things, honestly, it will elevate your spirit. Even another thing, I want to get back on it, but a couple of years ago, I was doing the Monday to Thursday, fasting Mondays to Thursdays, right? I did it for about 10 weeks. I was feeling calm. I was feeling relaxed. I wasn't overeating like I was before. I was feeling, more present in my prayers because these things has benefit that we don't know about. And it's the same thing in the terms of the way you conduct yourself. There's a reason it talks about, whoever has a mustard seed of arrogance is not going to enter. You know what I'm saying? So if that doesn't happen, right? If you keep that arrogance within yourself, do you know what I'm saying? What will happen is that it can actually lead you to stray, because kibr was the first sin, right? Shaitan, right? Iblis still believes, actually. This is what we were taught. He still believes, but he believes himself to be better than what Allah knows. And we have to be careful because some of us can fall into that. They call it like the hidden shirk, isn't it? You think you know better. It's not actively in your head like, I know better than Allah, but it's like, okay, we're supposed to do this. Nah, I think better than this. I know better. Do you know what I'm saying? And we have to fight with that every day. So,
yeah, man. Just because of time, we have to do bites, and
that's cool.
I'll link it as well. There's a when I knew you was coming on, I did some reading and stuff, and I found a good article by somebody. It will be linked down below. It was just talking about, like, you might have seen it, like, kind of, it was written in January, principles or like a guide for anybody who's doing any type of righteous activism for Muslims. And I think one of the biggest things that I emphasized on it, and I will just make this as like a closing kind of point.
Sure.
The one of the biggest things that was emphasized on is that principle of fiqh. I think that I've mentioned before. It's been mentioned on the podcast lots of times. That the kind of making sure that preventing harm is always comes before trying to do something good, and that should be at the forefront of the mind. So, and what that also extends to is that if there's a certainty or a chance or a good chance of something wrong happening as a result of the action, even if there's a potential for so much good, you don't do it. You leave off it. And I think when it comes to people kind of being in areas where things are very volatile, and this could go one way or the other, and it's easy to believe that me doing this or me saying this or could have this potential benefit for the Muslims. If the people need to really, it's like, remember you mentioned the risk assessment before you do anything. That's so key that people really reflect and think, is it that I'm chasing this win that is gonna be this big win and it's gonna feel like my life's work's achieved and I've done this major thing, forgetting that in the pathway to this major win there's been ridiculous L's that have probably set back the man and the community 20 years or given so many people a wrong idea of Islam. Then perhaps it's best that you reconsider. And that's why I'm before every single event. If you're going to talk about gardening, Muslim gardening, if you're not an expert, go and find out about gardening from your teacher before and find out what the position is. It's like the podcast,
or even pass it on.
Exactly. It's like even the podcast. If there's and it goes back to the 2 weekly thing in the fortnight. That if you're going to speak on anything, and you're kind of representing or trying to represent as best as you can an Islamic point of view, I wouldn't say Islam, but Islamic point of view perspective. You can't come and misrepresent the religion, because that's dangerous, very, very dangerous, and that's one of the things. That's one of the reasons Islam has suffered, and that's what will make Islam suffer in this context, this Western world that we live in, because Islam is something that even more importantly over here needs to be represented properly.
Word.
Properly. But yeah, man, did you wanna?
Yeah. For the bites of Jollof, this is a bit of an abstract one. It's just a cluster of different hadith that are quite self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go into a detailed explanation of all of them. But It's a cluster of hadith from Riyadh al-Salihin, which is a book of hadith from Imam An-Nawawi. I'll put that in the description as well, boy. It's going to be a long description. But yeah, it's a cluster of hadith on the etiquette of eating. So the first one is Umar bin Abu Salama radiallahu anhu reported, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to me, mention Allah's name, i.e. say Bismillah before starting eating. Eat with your right hand and eat from what is near you. So obviously not reaching over the table to get food. Next one says Aisha radiallahu anha reported, the Messenger of sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when any of you wants to eat, he should mention the name of Allah in the beginning, i.e. say Bismillah. If he forgets to do so in the beginning, he should say Bismillahi awalahu wa akhirahu, which means I begin with the name of Allah at the beginning and at the end. And there is another hadith, Jabir radiallahu anhu reported, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, if a person mentions the name of Allah upon entering his house or eating, Shaitan says, addressing his followers, you will find nowhere to spend the night and no dinner. But if he enters without mentioning the name of Allah, Shaitan says to his followers, you have found a place to spend the night in. And if he does mention the name of Allah at the time of eating, Shaitan says, you have found, right? If he does not mention the name of Allah at the time of eating, Shaitan says, you have found a place to spend the night in as well as food. And then the next one, Abu Umama radiallahu anhu reported, whenever the Prophet ﷺ finished the meal, he would say, Alhamdulillahi hamdan kathiran, tayyiban mubarakan fihi, ghayra makifiyyin wa la muwadda'in wa la mustaghanan anhu rabbuna, which means all praise is due to Allah, praise which is abundant, pure and full of blessings, which is indispensable and to which one cannot be indifferent. And the last one I will mention, Mu'adh bin Anas radiallahu anhu reported, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he who has taken food and says at the end, Alhamdulillahi alladhi at'amani hadha wa razaqanihi min ghayra hawlin minni wa la quwwatan, which means all praise is due to Allah who has given me food to eat and provided it without any endeavor on my part or any power. All his past sins will be forgiven. Yeah, so as we can just see from that small cluster of hadiths, obviously we know that the Quran and the Sunnah and the religion of Islam is not just a way for Muslims, it's a way for mankind. As we mentioned before, that there's no kind of part of life that the Quran and the Hadith and the Sunnah doesn't cover. So there are these kind of small things that we can implement into our lives that we can get reward from. Some things as simple as just eating and drinking, and we can get reward from that, can be easily forgotten. So these are things that we should and can try and implement into our daily lives and hopefully take as much benefit from them as possible.
Just get reward from and prevent potential harm from these things.
Exactly, yeah.
And you can just see the manners, the reaching over. It's a religion of manners, and like I said, there's no command or advice that's given to us from Allah or the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that will not benefit us in this life, and the next. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So of course, anything I've said that is wrong is from myself and the shaitan. Anything I said is correct is from Allah and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Jazakallah, man. Yeah, we'll leave it there. But Ayo, brother, Allah grant you success in all of your endeavors and continue to hold you up as and make you an example for the Muslims. And we pray that the work in all you do, career, in your efforts in the community, that they act as a weight for you on your scale positively in the Day of Judgment. Don't be a stranger. Obviously, come back. Don't be a stranger on WhatsApp either. Because all of this, I'm a ghost. It doesn't mean just because you say I'm a ghost, it doesn't mean you're allowed to be a ghost. But yeah, man, Jazakallah for coming. Yeah, man. That's been
for having me.
Cool. Any final words before?
No, just this is a snapshot of me, I guess, right now. So. Inshallah, again, if I've said anything wrong,
don't play this in 10 years against you.
May Allah forgive me. Please as well, people, listen with open heart. I think as well, something that can happen is maybe people read onto things, just listen as it is. That'll be appreciated, inshallah. And, you know, inshallah, may Allah bless all of those that are listening, bless the brothers here as well. And, you know, may we all be reunited in Jannah.
Ameen.
That's me.
Cool. Any further? Cool, man. Obviously, socials and that, I said at the beginning. Do that. Yeah, man. Barakallahu feek. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Jummah, your Friday for the listeners. And yeah, man. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yeah.